This happened 2 summers ago. My name's Rachel. I'm a mom of two. Connor, who was 12 at the time, and Lily, who had just turned 9. My husband James and I had planned a simple week-long vacation at a cabin we rented in Vermont. It wasn't a luxury trip or anything, just an old A-frame in the woods near a lake. We chose it because it was cheap, pet-friendly, and isolated enough that we wouldn't feel like we were bothering anyone. James works long hours, and I stay home with the kids, so we were really looking forward to a change of scenery. The cabin was older than the photos suggested, kinda musty inside with mismatched furniture and creaky floorboards, but the view made up for it. The back deck overlooked this huge, shimmering lake that reflected the trees like glass. It felt peaceful. I remember thinking it was exactly what we needed. The first few days were uneventful in the best way. The kids ran around barefoot, catching frogs and skipping rocks. James grilled burgers every night, and I finally had time to read on the porch. We didn't even have cell service most of the time, and that honestly felt like a blessing. It was on the third night that I saw him. James had taken the kids into town to grab groceries and ice cream. I stayed behind to take a bath, the first real alone time I'd had in months. I lit a candle, sank into the old clawfoot tub, and let the silence soak in. But then I heard footsteps on the deck, just 2 or 3. I paused, straining my ears. They stopped. I assumed maybe James had come back early, or one of the kids had forgotten something. I waited for the door to open or footsteps to come down the hallway, but nothing happened. I called out, "Hello?" But no one answered. After a few minutes, I got out, wrapped myself in a towel, and peeked through the front window. No car in the driveway, nothing but trees and gravel. I walked around the cabin quickly, checked the back door. It was still locked. I told myself maybe it was an animal on the deck. The place was old. Noises were bound to carry. But then that night, while brushing my teeth, I noticed something odd. The living room curtain was drawn just slightly. It had been wide open all day. I asked James if he moved it. He said no. Small thing, I know, but I couldn't shake the feeling. The next day, I decided to take a walk alone around the lake trail after breakfast. It loops through a wooded trail and ends back behind the cabin. I just needed some time to clear my head. About 20 minutes in, I got that prickly feeling, like someone was behind me. I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing. But then I saw it. A man, maybe 40 or 50 feet away, standing near the base of a tree. He was partially obscured by the trunk, like he didn't want to be seen. He didn't move, just stood there, still as the bark. I froze. I stared back, trying to make out details. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, wearing a dark green hoodie with the hood up, which struck me as odd given the weather. I blinked, and in that brief second, he was gone. Like he stepped behind the tree or just vanished altogether. I didn't run. I walked fast. My heart thudded in my throat the whole way back. When I got to the cabin, James was outside playing catch with the kids. I tried to act normal, didn't want to scare them, but I pulled James aside and told him what I saw. He brushed it off, said it was probably a local hiker, maybe someone avoiding interaction. "Not everyone's a serial killer," he joked. I laughed weakly, but I didn't believe it. The next morning, I woke up early and went to the kitchen to make coffee. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. There were wet footprints on the deck, bare footprints, leading up to the sliding glass door and stopping there, not going away, just approaching the house. I called James in. He rubbed his eyes, knelt down, and touched one of them. "Still damp," he muttered. Then he checked the latch on the door. It was locked from the inside. We walked around the house. No more prints, no other signs. We agreed it had to be a prank. Maybe some teenager from a nearby cabin trying to mess with tourists. But something didn't sit right. That night, after the kids went to bed, James went out to smoke on the deck while I stayed inside reading. Around 10, he came back and pale-faced. "There was someone at the edge of the woods," he said. He described a man standing just beyond the tree line, facing the house. Still, watching. James said when he called out, the man didn't move, just slowly stepped backward until he melted into the darkness. We called the local sheriff. He drove out, listened to our story, and gave us a tired nod. Said they occasionally get trespassers. Seasonal weirdos, he called them. Suggested we lock the doors and keep the porch lights on. That didn't help much. We didn't sleep much that night. The next day, we debated cutting the trip short, but the kids were having such a great time. They were oblivious, and James said he'd keep the rifle in the bedroom just in case. It was more of a family heirloom than anything, but it helped ease my nerves a little. That afternoon, I was sitting on the porch with my book when I noticed something on my phone. Even though we barely had signal, my notifications were still updating, and one had come through that chilled me to my core. It was a photo from an unknown number, a photo of me sitting on that same porch. But the angle? It wasn't taken from the front. It was from behind me, like someone had stood at the edge of the forest, hidden, and snapped it through the branches. I jumped up so fast my chair tipped over. James rushed out and I showed him the photo. He turned white. We called the police again, but there wasn't much they could do. The number was untraceable. The photo's metadata showed nothing. The sheriff told us if we felt unsafe, we should leave. That's all. So that night we started packing. Around 1 a.m. I woke up suddenly. Something was wrong. It was silent. I know that sounds weird, but there's always some noise in the woods. Crickets, frogs, wind in the leaves. This was dead quiet. I sat up and looked toward the window, and that's when I saw it. A face pressed to the glass. I didn't even scream. I couldn't. My body locked up. He was just staring in. No expression, no movement. I swear to God, it was the same man from the trail. James heard me gasp and sprang out of bed. By the time he ran to the window, the man was gone. But the smear from where his face had pressed was still there, and below that, a palm print. Large, dirty. We didn't wait. We woke the kids, threw our stuff in the car, and got the hell out of there before the sun came up. James didn't even stop to turn in the keys. The weirdest part? As we were pulling down the narrow gravel road, I looked in the rearview mirror, and I swear I saw him, standing in the middle of the road behind us, watching. We called the rental company and told them everything. They didn't seem surprised. Said they'd look into it, whatever that meant. The police followed up a few days later, said they found no sign of forced entry, no prints, no evidence anyone had been watching us. But I know what I saw. And I still have that photo on my phone, the one taken from the woods. Sometimes I open it, just to remind myself I didn't imagine it. There was someone out there, someone who watched me, and waited. And the worst part, I don't think he was just passing through. I think he knew I'd be there. My name's Derek. I'm 27 now, but this took place when I was 25. My girlfriend Kayla and I had been together for about 2 years, and we decided to splurge a little for our summer vacation. We found this stunning beachfront mansion on Airbnb in a little coastal town in South Carolina called Driftwood Cove. It looked like something out of a movie. 3 stories, floor-to-ceiling windows, white shutters, a private boardwalk to the sand. It even had a rooftop deck with a hot tub and an outdoor bar. The price was high, but it was off-season, so we justified it. One big vacation before we get too serious with jobs and real life, Kayla said. The host had a handful of reviews, all positive, though they were oddly vague. Just stuff like, gorgeous house, amazing location, hope to come back. Nothing detailed. I didn't think much of it at the time. We pulled up around 4 p.m. on a Saturday. The place was even bigger in person. Bright white siding, modern black fixtures, big wraparound porch. It was the kind of house that made you whisper, "Holy shit," under your breath. Inside, it was pristine. Vaulted ceilings, coastal decor, candles already lit, soft music playing from built-in speakers. Everything smelled faintly like eucalyptus and sea salt, but there was something off almost immediately. We walked into the master bedroom and found the ceiling fan on, even though no one had been there before us. It was slowly spinning, quiet but deliberate. Kayla reached for the pull string, and the second her fingers touched it, the fan shut off on its own. No click, no delay, just off. She laughed awkwardly. Must have hit the remote by accident or something. Except there wasn't a remote. I brushed it off, but that moment stayed with me. That first night, everything was normal. We made margaritas, walked the beach, watched the sunset from the rooftop. We even found an old Polaroid camera in the kitchen drawer and took a few silly pictures around the house. They printed weirdly faded, almost overexposed, but we figured the film was just expired. We went to bed around midnight. I woke up sometime in the middle of the night to what sounded like footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate, soft against the hardwood. I sat up, heart thudding. I figured maybe Kayla had gotten up to get water or check the doors. But when I looked over, she was right next to me, still asleep. The steps stopped. I stayed still, listened. Then, very faintly, I heard a door creak open down the hall. The sound of something scraping against the floor. Then nothing. I told myself it was the house settling. Big houses make noise, old wood shifts, that kind of thing. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning I went to make coffee and found one of the bar stools in the kitchen pushed back like someone had been sitting in it, even though Kayla and I had eaten on the deck the night before. I slid it back in, trying to ignore the chill crawling up my neck. That day, we went into town for groceries. While Kayla was shopping, I looked up the history of the house. I didn't expect to find anything, mostly just wanted to kill time. But I did find an old article. The mansion had been owned by a reclusive family in the 1980s. The father was some kind of investor, the mother a painter. They had one son. Apparently, the boy drowned in the ocean just behind the property when he was 9 years old. His body washed up 2 days later. The house had been vacant for nearly 30 years before being gutted and renovated for short-term rentals. I didn't tell Kayla. I didn't want to freak her out. That night, things escalated. We were watching a movie in the living room. About halfway through, we both heard something fall upstairs. Not just a thump, more like a crash. A heavy object hitting the floor hard. We paused the movie and looked at each other. Kayla said, "Is that the wind?" But all the windows were closed. The AC was on. We went upstairs together, slowly. When we got to the master bedroom, the mirror above the dresser was shattered. I don't mean cracked, I mean shattered. The glass was in a perfect semicircle on the floor, as if it had exploded outward. The frame was still hanging, tilted slightly, but not broken. There was nothing near it. No reason it should have fallen. Kayla looked pale. "That's not possible," she whispered. I cleaned it up, told her maybe the screws had come loose. Maybe it was just old. But inside, I felt sick. We locked the bedroom door that night. Kayla fell asleep eventually. I didn't. Around 2 a.m., I was scrolling through my phone in bed when the lamp on the nightstand flickered. Once. Then again. Then it shut off completely. I turned on my flashlight. The power wasn't out. Just the lamp. I sat there in the dark, trying to calm my breathing. Then I heard it. Tap. Tap. From the window. Not like rain, not random, like fingers. I got up, slowly walked over, and pulled back the curtain. There was nothing. Just the beach, the dunes, the dark. But when I looked down, I saw it. A single handprint. Small. On the outside of the glass. Too small to be an adult's. I backed away from the window and got back in bed. The next morning, I told Kayla I wanted to leave early. She didn't argue. She'd felt it too, the heaviness in the house, like the walls were holding in a breath. We decided to pack up after lunch. I went upstairs to grab the last of our stuff while Kayla cleaned up the kitchen. I had my camera in my hand, just a regular digital camera I'd been using to snap photos for Instagram. I figured I'd get one last shot of the ocean from the master balcony. I stepped out, lifted the camera, and took the picture. I looked down at the preview screen. My stomach dropped. There, standing in the reflection of the balcony door behind me, was a boy, pale, barefoot, wearing what looked like a white t-shirt and shorts. He was staring directly at the camera, but when I turned around, nothing. No one. I didn't even yell for Kayla. I just grabbed our bags and practically ran downstairs. She took one look at me and knew something was wrong. We drove off 20 minutes later, barely speaking. It wasn't until we were 3 hours away that I showed her the photo. She cried, not hysterically, more like a quiet, cold sob that told me she was remembering things she hadn't wanted to admit, like how her Polaroid prints had all come out with a blur in the same spot, or how her hairbrush had been in the sink that morning, soaking wet. We never posted the Airbnb review, never got a refund, but a week later I got a notification on my phone. The Airbnb listing was removed, not marked unavailable, completely taken down. I've looked for it since, that exact house, that exact spot on Driftwood Cove, but it's like it never existed. I still have the picture, and every time I look at it I see something new, a second face in the window, a shadow in the corner. Last time I checked, I swear his hand had moved. This happened the summer before last. My name's Cam. I was 24 at the time. A couple friends and I had booked a week-long trip to the Outer Banks, kind of a last-minute summer thing we threw together after our group chat had been dead all winter. There were 4 of us. Me, my girlfriend at the time, Harper, and our friends Julian and Lex. We all chipped in and rented this low-key beach house about a 10-minute walk from the ocean. Not a mansion or anything, but clean, cozy, and just isolated enough to feel like a real break. The place had a big wraparound porch, some creaky screen doors, and this old-school charm that made it feel like you were stepping out of time for a bit. The air smelled like sunscreen and salt. There was sand in every corner of the floorboards by day 2. We spent the first few days being exactly as lazy as we wanted to be. Long mornings, drinks by noon, playing cards on the deck until sunset. Honestly, it was perfect. Every night after dinner, we'd head down to the beach with a little Bluetooth speaker and a couple drinks. Nothing crazy, just nighttime walks on the sand, listening to the water. I've always loved the beach at night. It's like a different place. The waves are louder, the air's thicker. Everything feels closer and farther away at the same time. But around the 3rd night, something changed. It was probably around 11:30 p.m. We'd had dinner late, and Harper had stayed back to call her sister, so it was just me, Julian, and Lex walking along the shoreline with a couple cans of hard seltzer and a flashlight that was already dying. We weren't far from the house, maybe half a mile, when Julian stopped and pointed toward the dunes. "Did you hear that?" We froze. I turned off the speaker so we could listen. There it was again, crunching. Not wind, not waves, footsteps on dry sand. We waited, ears straining. Lex laughed it off. Probably just a crab or something. But it wasn't. It was heavy, measured, almost pacing. We shined our flashlight toward the dunes, but it barely lit more than a few feet in front of us. Just seagrass swaying in the dark. I felt this weird pressure in my chest, like I was suddenly aware of how far we were from anyone else. No houses visible, no one else on the beach, just us, and whatever was behind those dunes. "Let's head back," I said. Julian nodded. Lex hesitated but didn't argue. We started walking back, faster than before. I looked over my shoulder more than once. Nothing. Just black sky and white foam. Back at the house, we didn't talk much about it. Harper was curled up on the couch, and we didn't want to freak her out. Julian made a joke about bringing a better flashlight next time. I told him I had a big one in the glove box of my car, one of those heavy-duty rechargeable ones my dad had given me. I wish I'd brought it that night. The next day, the vibe shifted. We all slept in late. Harper mentioned she felt weird during the night, like she'd been dreaming about waves but kept hearing breathing instead. By sunset, we decided to stay in. No night walk, no dunes, just a movie and some frozen pizza. but around 10 p.m., Lex said she wanted to walk off the wine she'd been drinking. Julian offered to go with her, and Harper and I stayed behind. About 30 minutes later, Julian texted me. "Bro, do you hear it now?" I texted back, confused. Then he called me. His voice was shaky, not like him. "Something's behind the dunes again, same spot. I swear it's following us. We stopped walking and it stopped. Then we walked and it started again." I told him to come back immediately. He agreed and hung up. They got back maybe 10 minutes later, breathing heavy. "We were being followed," Lex said flatly. "We ran, but we didn't hear anything once we hit the access road." Julian added, "It was close. I mean, like 20 feet max. I think it was a person, not an animal. It moved like it wanted us to hear it." We stayed in that night, all of us. We didn't even go out on the deck. The following night, our last night, was after it was quiet, too quiet. The air was weirdly still. Not even the screen door creaked. It was just past midnight when Julian said, "I want to know what that was." I was already shaking my head, but he stood up, grabbed the flashlight from the counter and said, "We'll stay on the trail, not even go on the beach." I didn't want to, but Harper said she didn't want him going alone, and if I went, she'd come too. So we all went, 4 of us. One weak flashlight, one Bluetooth speaker in someone's pocket turned off. The access road was quiet. Just sand, grass, and one orange light at the top of a pole flickering like it was about to die. We made it to the start of the dune path, that narrow wooden walkway that cuts through the beach grass and ends on the sand. That's when we heard it, not footsteps this time, breathing, long, ragged breathing, like someone struggling to hold it in. It was coming from under the walkway. Harper grabbed my arm. Lex stopped moving completely. We shined the flashlight down through the cracks between the boards. We couldn't see anything, but the sound kept going. Then it stopped. The breathing cut out like someone had covered their mouth. That was enough. We turned around, fast walking back toward the road. That's when we heard it again. Thump from behind us. Then another, and another. The sound of footsteps on wood, someone sprinting down the walkway after us. "Run!" someone shouted. We took off. I swear I felt breath on my neck. We cut through the sand path leading to the driveway. My chest was on fire, legs burning, heart beating so fast I thought it might stop. I was the first to reach the car. I yanked open the passenger door, popped the glove box, and grabbed the flashlight. This thing was like a floodlight. I turned it on and blasted it toward the trail behind us. The light hit every blade of grass, every inch of wood on that walkway, and there was nothing, not a single person, not even footprints in the sand. No one. We stood there panting, watching the beam cut through the dark. It was silent, like the dunes were holding their breath again. Eventually we went inside. Locked every door, sat on the floor in the living room like we were waiting for something else to happen. But it didn't. Nothing else happened. No sounds, no knocking, no breathing. In the morning, the sun came up like nothing had happened at all. We packed in silence and left by 10. I never reported it, never told the Airbnb host, never checked the security cam footage, even though I know it probably caught something. We still don't talk about that last walk, but I'll never forget the feeling of being chased by something that wasn't there. Or maybe it was. Maybe that light just scared it off. Maybe that's why it only shows up when you can't see it.